Great Gardens is a 1975 documentary which was followed by a movie in 2009 starring Jessica Lange and Drew Barrymore that shares the lives of mother and daughter Edith Ewing Bouvier and Edith Bouvier Beale. Join me as we explore the devouring mother archetype through the lens of this movie, Grey Gardens. Devouring what? The devouring mother archetype is sometimes called the dark mother. I think this helps to explain it. If you think about all the positive attributes of the mother archetypes, she's nurturing, warm, self sacrificing, fertile, protective, supportive, compassionate, strong, persistent, patient, and understanding. When the mother archetype goes in an extreme direction in either way, either too much of these things or too little, she becomes unbalanced and not healthy. The dark or devouring mother is not what we typically think of as neglectful. She's too much. So she's over-involved, dependent upon the child for emotional support, overprotective, controlling, and uses manipulation to keep her child in line. And what happens when a mother's love is controlling and suffocating? Well, Big Edie in Grey Gardens can happen. Now, this is a pretty extreme example, but it will make it really easy to see. And if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. This one's for Jody, but if you like it too, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. So let me give you some background information in case you haven't seen it. Big Edie, as the mom is called in this movie and in real life, was born into a wildly wealthy family who hobnobbed with royalty and the high society crowd of the early 20th century. Her father was John Ferneau Bouvier, and her cousin was Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, so the wife of JFK, John F. Kennedy. And just to give you some perspective on just how wealthy they were, Big Edie was set to get inheritance from her father of over $800,000, but he cut it to only $65,000 after she embarrassed the family one too many times. Her daughter, Little Edie, liked to say that she got marriage proposals from J. Paul Getty Jr., Joseph Kennedy Jr., and Howard Hughes. That's not been confirmed, but she did travel in those circles, so they were socialites. Big Edie was said to be a child prodigy when it came to singing, and she did do some singing as a child. She married a wealthy lawyer and lived the socialite lifestyle. She and her husband bought a grand 23-room mansion out in the Hamptons where Edie would entertain artists. And this was not the dumb thing. Her husband wanted her to be more normal and spend way less, and so they parted ways. He lost his fortune in the stock market crash and the following depression, and Edie was left with a house and really nothing more. Now let's back up and talk about Little Edie. Little Edie and her mother were inseparable. Little Edie was in 11th grade, and her mom took her out of school for 2 years due to some unnamed respiratory illness. Meanwhile, they were going out to lunch and the movies every day. And I'm not sure she even graduated from high school because of this, but little Edie did go to finishing school. There was a lot of pressure for little Edie to get married because her father's loss of income. He couldn't afford to continue to support her, but she wanted to be a model, dancer, or actress, and so she refused. She actually did get some jobs, but this infuriated her father because he found it degrading and embarrassing. And he did encourage her to get a regular secretarial job, though. And even though he found her job leads, for whatever reason, she was unable to do them. In the movie, her father dies, and her mother manipulates her to come back home to take care of her. Her mother doesn't want her to get married because in those days, the daughter took care of the parents in their old age. Big Edie has 2 sons, but they're not under her spell the way little Edie is, and that's not the custom at the time. So let's pause there and look at the signs that we're dealing with a devouring mother. So is Edie afraid of growing up? So I'm not sure if little Edie is afraid of growing up, but Big Edie is afraid for her to grow up. This is why she kept her out of school for 2 years. I can't even imagine something like this happening and nobody says anything, but it did. It's ridiculous. Does little Edie find it difficult to maintain relationships? Well, she only had one in the movie, and it was with a married man and lasted all of about 5 minutes. So I would say that this is a yes. How could she be able to maintain relationships when the one that meant the most to her, her relationship with her mother, is so damaged? She doesn't have any role models for what a healthy relationship looks like. Does she depend on her mother? That's a definite yes. When she was 11, little Edie wrote in her diary, I have two great loves in my life. First, I love my mother, which will always go on, never be forgotten or forsaken. Most children think that mother love is a thing taken for granted, isn't it? Second, my buzzing love for a boy. No mere crush, but a true, steady love. That's not normal or natural. I believe that's cultivated from her mother saying this to her over and over, year after year. Children are supposed to separate from their parents and become their own people, but with a devouring mother, this isn't possible. The next sign that you have a devouring mother is that you end up in codependent relationships. So, what's a codependent relationship? It's a relationship where you don't get to have any needs because the other person takes priority. It comes from a fear of rejection, a need to be needed, and a lack of boundaries. Does that describe these two? Absolutely. Little Edie gave up her life to be with her mother, and her mother wouldn't have it any other way. Did Edie prioritize her mother's needs over her own? Yes. That's a sign of having a devouring mother. Her mom blocked every normal rite of passage. She didn't let her finish school. She interfered with her romances. Edie was a beautiful young woman who was highly sought after by the guys, and her mother shut it all down and essentially kept her a prisoner of guilt in that house. The next sign of having a devouring mother is that you feel guilty if you put your needs first. The movie doesn't say this explicitly, but Edie ran away once in the movie to New York, but she came right back. In 1952, at age 35, when she came back for good, she set her hair on fire, probably in an act of defiance, but also as a way to shut down her escape. So it's like, okay, I surrender. This is going to be my life. Edie was being noticed by people who could potentially make her a star. It was just before her big break that her mother called and Edie came running for the last time. So Edie wasn't allowed to have needs. Any potential plans that took her away from her mother were squashed. Another sign of the devouring mother is that you need approval from your mother for everything. Big Edie wanted to be a singer. She adored the spotlight, so Mom was totally okay with little Edie being a dancer. She encouraged that, as long as she only danced at home. And I'd say that's why Edie nourished that dream. It was probably always her mother's dream, not her own. She wanted that because that's what her mother wanted for her, and succeeding in that way would make her mother proud and love her even more. That's really the only thing that makes sense because Big Edie had an accompanist who lived in the house, Mr. Gould. He played the piano and taught piano to her sons. And Mr. Gould also played piano so Edie could sing. So little Edie was basically the backup dancer for Big Edie. It's all about what mom wants. Another sign of the devouring mother is that you feel worthless without her. Little Edie did fine on her own while she was in New York. She also did fine after her mother died, but the fact that she stayed with her for 25 years and endured some really horrible conditions suggests that they had a real strong bond and she needed her mother's approval. There are lots of signs that your mom is a devouring mother, but the last one I'm going to talk about is that there are no boundaries. You can't say no, can't speak your mind. Mama's always in your business and has something to say about whatever you do. You don't get to have control or autonomy. You don't get to be your own person because they view you as an extension of themselves. This definitely fits with these two. Mom's life was little Edie's life, whether she wanted it or not. Mom's choices came along with her, so whatever mom decided was law. So in a nutshell, the devouring mother engages in emotional incest with the child by making the child responsible for their feelings and well-being. At the same time, they infantilize the child so that she can't grow up and leave them. The mom often treats their daughters like a pet or a doll rather than a real person, and so the child loses herself and often doesn't develop her own identity. They call this the devouring mother because the mom consumes the child emotionally, psychologically, and if there's physical abuse, then physical as well. As long as the child stays submissive, she gives her toxic love. If the child gets out of line by trying to have an opinion or desire, the devouring mother uses guilt and manipulation to shame them back into compliance. There's a lot of study in this dynamic, And it's different with daughters than it is with sons. And I'm going to stick with the mother-daughter dynamic since we're talking about the women of great gardens. I may talk about how it looks with sons in a different video. Now, none of this is little Edie's fault. As children, we need the love and care of our mothers. We can't do anything without help. We can't feed ourselves, comfort ourselves, walk or talk. So we need a lot of attention. And we figure out just how to get it when we're little because our lives literally depend upon it. Some babies cry a lot. Some are good at being cute. We do what we have to do. And little Edie figured out that she had to be whatever her mom wanted to get her mom to love her. And it can be subtle. So I want to point some things out. This movie and the documentary were a huge hit and struck a chord with a lot of people. Everybody saw something different. The first time I saw it, I came away from it thinking that it was a hoarder movie. And it's not a hoarder movie at all. The house is a wreck. There's a lot of stuff in it, but it's not because they were hoarders. It was a wreck because they were babied socialites who didn't know how to do anything for themselves and no longer had the money to pay someone to do it for them. They had learned helplessness. Just like little Edie couldn't get a job, her mom couldn't clean a house. They were physically incapable, and they weren't emotionally capable either. So there are two scenes of the two Edies singing and dancing. They look endearing. Or do they? Maybe that's Big Edie's way of getting her daughter to keep her company and to be able to have an audience for her singing. When little Edie talks about leaving, her mom says, "You'd be bored without me. You can't do anything without me." Little Edie has a hard time doing normal everyday things. So this is a way of her stealing her confidence, and it works because she never leaves. By staying in that house that is isolated and being closed in by the vines and the trees, Big Edie is forcing little Edie into her horrible nightmare life. Big Edie is choosing isolation and is forcing it onto little Edie so that she doesn't have to endure it alone. The drama really starts when little Edie leaves New York and misses her audition. It's her big break. This could launch her career, but I think she was afraid to succeed. She was afraid to be away from the safety of her mother, and this is why she made that choice. Whenever little Edie talked about modeling, dancing, or performing, her mom ridicules her or minimizes her dreams. It's ironic that little Edie gained a cult following after the documentary was released because of her fashion choices. She didn't have hair because of alopecia and setting her hair on fire, so she made scarves out of sweaters or whatever, and people loved it. But her mom made fun of her and at the same time encouraged her because it made things interesting. So she was gaslighting her the whole time. Big Edie's sons come home and tell her that she can't afford to stay in that house. She doesn't have the money and what she has will run out. They give her a plan for how she can sell the house and live comfortably on the proceeds, but she refuses to leave. And the house begins to decay around her because she doesn't have the money to keep up a mansion. And I believe this is calculated too. If Big Edie leaves that house, it's an opportunity for little Edie to escape because Big Edie won't have the same needs that she now has. There'll be no chains of nostalgia to keep her there. If you've ever seen the movie, it's horrible. The house has holes in the roof. There's a tree growing through the roof. Raccoons are walking around freely. There are cats and cat feces everywhere. There's no litter box, so the cats are peeing everywhere. By the time the health department shows up, there's no running water or electricity because they can't afford it. And they're living on cat food. How are they cleaning anything, much less themselves? I don't know. The smell is horrible. You have to be deep asleep to not realize that your house stinks. It's cold. You have no resources, and nobody's doing a thing to change it. Big Edie has sons. She has relatives. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis came in after their story was in the newspaper, talking about how horrible the house was, and gave them the equivalent of $160,000 to clean up the house and bring it back up to code. But I'm not sure how far that went. So that happened in 1971. Mom dies 2 years later. Edie sold it in 1979 for $220,000, but it was still a wreck. The new owners found 52 dead cats inside. There were still fleas, raccoons, rats, opossums, and countless cats in the house. Walls literally collapsed when touched. It was really uninhabitable. They were totally checked out from reality to live in that type of environment. I think it's really important to understand how this happens. Little Edie was reared to be her mother's pet. When her dad left, little Edie became her mother's partner, best friend, and caretaker. Whatever her mother needed came first. If she wasn't complaining of health issues, she wanted to be entertained, or she couldn't be left because of finances. The only bit of self that Edie had left was her poetry, dances, and fashion. With a parent like this, there's this desperation to be seen, and the sad part of that is it's never going to happen. When they were talking about the documentary premiere, Big Edie discourages little Edie from going. And it's hard to tell if she's afraid that people will laugh at her or if she's jealous of the attention she might get. But Big Edie says something like, I don't think people see you the way you think they do. Then she changes her mind and encourages her to go. But little Edie does get her time in the spotlight after her mom dies. She gets a gig in Greenwich Village for 6 shows where fans of the documentary came to support her. She said, I'm finally getting to live. She was 61. But even that was a strange dual type of reality. So the reviews of the show were vicious. People said she was being exploited, but little Edie didn't think so. Her biographer, Kent Bertram, called this her second debutante season. And although little Edie fluctuated between blaming her mother for ruining her life when she was alive, she also defended her against any outside attacks. And once her mom was gone, she became a saint in her eyes. So little Edie's life is a contradiction. She's engaged in this ongoing performance of rebellion and devotion. And in the documentary, she's confident and self-assured one moment, then searching for reassurance and approval the next. She adores her mom. And then she rolls her eyes when her mom starts singing. She's mother and child, captor and captive, performer and recluse. She's all of these things and really nothing solid that's all her own because of the enmeshment. She wants to be her own person, but she never escapes the identity of being little Edie of Grey Gardens. Once a documentary is released, people do recognize and appreciate her uniqueness. She embraces her life at Grey Gardens rather than being ashamed of it. She's been dead since 2002 and her legacy lives on. There's an Instagram page dedicated to her and her fashion brand. It's such an intriguing story. If you see a story about codependency, a case can be made for that. If you see a tragedy, a love story, resilience, poverty, strength, triumph, it's all in there. Even though we look at little Edie as a product of a devouring mother, for her, the love was real. And I think this gave her the pride, desire, and creativity to be what she ultimately became, and the power to stand in the limelight and shine. And it's ironic that this is something both women desired, but couldn't have alone. When they fuse and become one with the devouring mother's death, the limelight comes. A life like this could have broken many people, but little Edie made the world her oyster. You might think that her mom dying would have been the end of her because they were so close, but no. She sold Grey Gardens, walked away from that life, and seemed to leave behind any anger or resentment that she may have had, and had a good 20 years after that. So if there is hope for how to be happy after growing up with a devouring mother, I think this is it. I think this is why the movie is so loved by so many for so long. I think that people see themselves in her, and her victory becomes their hope of breaking free too. I know that when we talk about mental health issues, it can come across as, so this is what made you jacked up, or this is what went wrong, especially with something as dark a topic as the devouring mother. But what I get from this movie is that there's always hope for a happy ending. This movie pulled at every emotion within me, so I'm very happy that Jody suggested it, and I hope that you have enjoyed this trip down memory lane. If so, please give me a thumbs up and let me know what you saw in the movie. I love that great movies are so multifaceted and speak to people in so many different ways. So I love to see what you see. Thanks. Ciao.